because three brave women, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, couldn't be flipped. I think all along they were hoping they could flip those women into taking their names off of the petition, and they never could.
And it's a concern about the political fallout for the GOP, which caused the speaker to change his mind, you think?
Absolutely. The president was pitting the GOP conference against our own base. Like 80% of Republicans wanted these files released, and the other 20% just didn't care. There was literally nobody who said not to release these files. And it was also a campaign promise. I think the calculation ultimately for the speaker and the president was a political calculation. They realized this could jeopardize the majority if they took the side, literally the side of pedophiles and rapists.
And what if
no, when the Epstein files are released, because men will go to prison, and until that happens, the justice hasn't been served. I know through the victims' lawyers there are at least 20 credible accusations of rape and sex trafficking that have been relayed to the FBI, and they've done nothing about it, and it resides in their 302 files. The White House has announced a bunch of partisan investigations. I think that's a bad idea. This was never a partisan issue, and I think it's another bad idea if, I'm not sure their motivations, but if that was to create silos of information that can't be released based on the...
Thomas Massie just fired a warning shot at the DOJ and FBI, one that could shake Washington to its core. He's now threatening to read the Epstein Client List out loud on the House floor, where no one can hide it or bury it again. If he follows through, some very powerful men may finally face real consequences. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
The speaker has decided that there should be a new class of victims that are protected. He thinks that the rich men who flew on the jets to the rape island should be protected against unfounded accusations, but here's the problem. There are guilty men that his provisions that he wants would protect that have never been investigated, that there are credible allegations of sexual abuse and rape against. And so the Senate would be fools to start trying to change this bill in the way that Speaker Johnson wants it changed.
And why do you think the Speaker changed his vote ultimately, or changed his tune, I should say, and then voted accordingly?
Two reasons, but they kind of go back to the same reason. Number one, Trump told him to do it, and this Speaker of the House is always going to do whatever President Trump wants. Number two, they both, I think, came to the conclusion that Trump was asking my colleagues to walk a plank that was going to cost them the majority, and then that it would be no good for the president or our speaker in that instance. So I think it was a political calculation.
Can you just explain, though, I mean, the whiplash that we were seeing here from going from this bill looking like it had no chance to now passing overwhelmingly and potentially being law by the end of the night?
Have I done an interview with you when you've said, surely you know this must be dead on arrival in the Senate or something? But no, it has gone from presumably dead on arrival, presumably getting vetoed, to now getting fast-tracked and having a nearly unanimous majority here in the House. And I think it's because three brave women, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, couldn't be flipped. I think all along they were hoping they could flip those women into taking their names off of the petition, and they never could.
And it's a concern about the political fallout for the GOP, which caused the speaker to change his mind, you think?
Absolutely. The president was pitting the GOP conference against our own base. Like 80% of Republicans wanted these files released, and the other 20% just didn't care. There was literally nobody who said not to release these files. And it was also a campaign promise. I think the calculation ultimately for the speaker and the president was a political calculation. They realized this could jeopardize the majority if they took the side, literally the side of pedophiles and rapists.
And what if they don't release the files now?
Because
they could say it's an investigation that's ongoing.
Today they decided to pull the Band-Aid off. I hope they continue that effort in the Senate and in the White House. We will know when the Epstein files are released, because men will go to prison, And until that happens, the justice hasn't been served. I know through the victims' lawyers, there are at least 20 credible accusations of rape and sex trafficking that have been relayed to the FBI, and they've done nothing about it, and it resides in their 302 files. The White House has announced a bunch of partisan investigations. I think that's a bad idea. This was never a partisan issue, and I think it's another bad idea if, I'm not sure their motivations, but if that was to create silos of information that can't be released based on these investigations. But even if they start 10 investigations, there's no way they're going to cover up the crimes that have been perpetrated on 1,000 victims. So names of rich and powerful men will get released when the president signs this bill. And they are criminally liable at the DOJ and FBI if they don't release these files. This is a law. It's a steep effort, right? Not just to do a discharge petition and get it passed through the House, but to get the Senate to pass it and get the White House to sign it. We're not there yet, but when we get there, this is not a subpoena. This is a law.
And so you are confident that these documents will ultimately come out, even if the president tries to fight this?
Yes, I'm confident. And that we sort of, we know when they're out because we know what some of these lists, who some of the men are. I don't have the names in my head right now. The ultimate thing that we could do is read the names on the floor of the House, and that could happen, but what needs to happen is the FBI needs to release these names.
Is that something you might do if he resists this, if the DOJ releases this? Could you go to the floor and read these names?
We absolutely would do that. Marjorie would do that. I would do that. There are Democrats who would do that, and but that's not the right path forward. That's the last effort if we hit all of the walls. But so far, we're making it through the walls and over the walls, and we're getting this done.
And how much time are you willing to give the president and the administration to release these documents when this becomes law?
I've never set a timeline. The victims have waited a very long time to get justice, and it's really up to them.
Okay, all right, I understand. Thank you. All right.
What you just saw wasn't a routine hearing. It was a political explosion. Thomas Massie, a Republican usually aligned with the far right, just delivered one of the most stunning rebukes of his own party this year. His message was unmistakable. If the DOJ and FBI refuse to release the real, unredacted Epstein files, he's ready to expose the names himself on the House floor. Massie's frustration comes from a truth that's been buried for years. The Epstein case has been protected by some of the most powerful people in America. And for the first time, he said out loud what insiders have whispered privately. Wealthy, influential men have been shielded, victims haven't received justice, and the system has done everything it can to hide the truth. The most shocking moment? Massie openly accused Speaker Mike Johnson of trying to protect the rich men who flew on the jets, and he says Trump was the one pulling the strings. According to Massie, Johnson flipped only because Trump demanded it, revealing a party driven not by principle, but by obedience to one man. And he doesn't stop there. Massie warns that if the administration stalls, he and other lawmakers are prepared to read the names into the congressional record. That's the nuclear option. Once those names are spoken on the House floor, they become public forever. No redactions, no cover-ups, no escape. But the deeper issue isn't just political drama. Massie is acknowledging something institutions have denied for decades. Men with power and influence avoided accountability because the FBI failed to act on credible accusations. Victims gave evidence and nothing happened. If true, this isn't just an Epstein scandal. It's a failure of the entire system. Meanwhile, the GOP is tearing itself apart. Trump world wants to control which names see daylight. Party leaders fear the fallout. The far-right faction wants to weaponize the list. And Democrats, seeing the hypocrisy, are demanding full transparency. Massie calling out his own party for taking the side of predators is not normal. It's a sign of collapse inside the GOP, a party terrified of the truth its own base wants released. And he's right. Blocking these files would cost Republicans politically. Most GOP voters want them out. But here's the key. Massie has now boxed in the entire system. If the names stay hidden, he gets to expose corruption himself. If they're released, he gets credit for forcing transparency. And in either case, victims may finally be closer to justice than they've ever been. Because this story isn't just about Epstein, it's about power, accountability, and whether America will ever stop protecting the wealthy at the expense of the vulnerable. If you believe the truth shouldn't depend on someone's status or bank account, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Pressure works, and this is exactly the moment when it matters most.